Hi, I'm Julie Nathanson, and you might know me as Samantha Maxis in quite a few Call of Duty games. Or maybe you know me as the opera-singing demon frog Belle in Bayonetta 3, or Jess Black from Far Cry 5, one of your player voices in Helldivers 2, your champion Briar in League of Legends. Ooh, maybe you watch cartoons. I'm Rowan from the Zeta Project, Crimson Widow from Avengers Assemble, Gilda Dent from Batman the Long Halloween. I'm on Rising Impact, Blood of Zeus, Dota Dragon's Blood, Firebuds Eden, Elena of Avalor. Generally speaking, I don't know what you're watching, but right now I do. You're watching In Conversation with Amber the Fangirl.
Hi everybody, Amber here. Welcome back to In Conversation with ATF. My guest today is a guest I've wanted on my podcast for a very, very, very long time, and I'm so excited to be sitting here and talking to her over Zoom. You may know my guest as the voice of Rosalie Rowan in the Zeta Project, Silver Banshee and the Jewelee in Suicide Squad Hell to Pay, Yelena Belova in Avengers Assemble, Jess Black in Far Cry 5, Belle from Beauty and the Beast in various pieces of Disney media, including Disney's Dreamlight Valley, which I used to play it quite a lot. Robin Snyder, remember her from Powerpuff Girls, yeah, everyone knows that scene. That furry professor, I was an accident too. I was like, um, Gilda Dent in Batman: The Long Halloween, Sally Johnson in Spider-Man: The New Animated Series. I believe that was the one with Neil Patrick Harris in Spider-Man.
It was, and Lisa
Awesome.
Loeb as our Mary Jane.
Ah, awesome. Her other credits include Johnny Bravo, Stuart Little, the animated series, Be Cool Scooby-Doo, Gremlins Secrets of the Mogwai, Ape Escape 3, Psychonauts, Call of Duty Black Ops, Lego DC Supervillains, and many more. My guest is Julie Nathanson. Hi!
Hi! And my interviewer is Amber Jones. Yay!
Oh my gosh, but first of all, hi. It's so
Hi.
lovely to meet you. I've wanted you on my show for a very long time, and I'm so happy it's now worked out. And I don't know when this is going to be released. It will probably be released sort of before, I don't know. If you know, you know. Well, yes, and I will be meeting my guest in later in July. So, anyways, Julie, how are you doing? How is the weather over there? It has been absolutely sweltering over here.
It is, I believe it is warm today. I'm having one of those days where I am mostly in my booth and
Mm-hmm.
not outside of the house.
Yeah.
But last time I checked, it was warm. But as you can see, I live in an enchanted forest, and it's
I
always
mean,
just
I'm jealous
delightful here
personally.
in the enchanted forest.
I mean, I'm jealous personally. It looks so magical. I love it. Just the sort of
It's
green ambience,
I
you know.
I love this tree. There's an artist, Ferdinand Ladera, and he had created this for a game, and a lot of people have sort of copied this, and he hasn't necessarily been a part of the copying and purchasing of things. So I got in touch with him, and I am hoping that he will do a commission for me. And a friend of mine actually commissioned something for me by him because she knows how much I love this art. I'm very inspired by this enchanted forest world.
It's awesome. I love it. I really do. Honestly, I'm still starstruck by the fact that I'm talking to you right now. Honestly, just saying. But yeah,
It's very sweet.
I don't even know where to start. Okay, so I'm gonna start by just going all the way back in time to when you were
Okay.
younger. What
Okay.
inspired you? Did you always want to be an actress? Did you ever, what were your career path predictions like growing up? How did you sort of fall? Well, I won't say fall, but how did you become a voice actor?
Oh, I fell. I mean, I completely fell. Um,
Oh, right, okay.
so unlike other friends of mine who
Mm-hmm.
had long time aspirations of being a voice actor,
Yep.
it never occurred to me. Like that wasn't a thing that was in my mind. Performing, absolutely. So I grew up performing. I grew up studying acting. I was in every play I could get my hands on. I studied singing. I did musical theater. When I was very young, the first time I remember, they say like, when did you catch the acting bug? I was 6 years old, and I was in first grade. There was some sort of play And I think it was just like little skits, and the parents were coming, and I remember sort of peering out from the curtain and seeing my family in the little folding chairs. And then somebody said, Jimmy's not going to be here today. And that, like, he had a bunch of scenes. And I thought, what are we going to do? And I was like, all right, well, he's playing the weatherman. Someone give me the gun. I put on his suit jacket. Remember, I'm like 6 years old. Put my hair in a little bun. And I performed as him because I had accidentally memorized everybody's parts. And so I did my own stuff and I played as him. And I was like, anybody else need to take a break? Because I got this. And it was so fun. And I remember feeling like it made sense to me. I've always had a ton of energy. And so being performative was a delight. And the whole trajectory of my career has been strange and winding, but I ended up studying at undergraduate school. I went to Tufts University. I studied drama and English. I'm also a writer. So after college, where I had been doing, again, a ton of plays and a lot of studying, I moved to New York City, and I was very fortunate that I began working right away. And I started in on camera, which I don't really do anymore because it ended up, as lucky as I was and as grateful as I felt being able to work, I think I always knew that I didn't feel the longevity for myself. Maybe it was a little bit of like checking in with my assets and limitations, and just kind of thinking maybe, I have other interests as well. So I was really loving acting and I was loving writing, but I hadn't yet found voiceover. And at the time I was recurring on, I was on a soap in New York, and I had this side job like you do. And I was working at a wine shop, and this man walked in, and I was the first female they'd ever had working at the wine shop. So they were like, oh, all the men who come in, you sell them wine. And I was like, this is the 90s. That makes sense. So, so this man walked in, and he had all these toys with him. He was Ira the toy man, and he had this like projectile Barbie, which I don't think it's that, but it was like a fairy Barbie. He was like sending it all over.
Yeah, like a
this
sky
store.
dancer. Yeah.
Yeah, like, but with like $1,000 bottles of wine everywhere. And they're like, that's all right. Julie will sell you wine. Talk to this guy. And he's like, what do you do other than being here? And I know what I sold him. Sold him a 1991 Meritage. And I said, well, I'm also an actor. And he's like, yeah, okay. So the next day he comes back into the shop, and he says, you are an actor. I was at the gym and I saw you up on the TV. You're on, One Life to Live. And I was like, yeah, I wasn't lying. And he's like, well, there's a woman who works out next to me and she's a manager. Do you want to meet with her? I think she'd like to, we can set that up. And I was like, okay. So the long story short is that I was asked by her, because she really only worked with younger people, like children. She said, is there anything that you need? And I said, well, I don't have a commercial agent. She's like, great. And she called up CESD, and I ended up getting signed. So I am shortening my story. So believe it or not. So cut to years later, I've been at CESD. I've been at CESD as an on-camera actor doing commercials. And I was out in Los Angeles doing another job on camera. And this was, I always like to make fun of how long ago it was and say, this was in the olden days when the internet wasn't what it is now. So I went on this message board, and I was like, oh, I want to see what the fans think. And this is like, Amber, no one at the time was saying, don't read the comments. No one knew what comments were. So I read the comments, and this is the direct quote. She's real pretty and all, but I have to turn the volume off on my TV because it's like Alvin and the Chipmunks have invaded my living room. And I was like, first of all, bleep you. Second of all, that sounds like an amazing career. Wait a minute, I should be doing cartoons. So I called up my agents, CESD, they were in New York. And I said, when I get back from this shoot, can I come in and meet with the voiceover agents? And they said, sure. And I went on my first audition, which was for Lifetime Television for promos. And it was The Dish, The Wire, Pandora, 3 blind dates, The Place on Lifetime, Come As You Are. And I booked it. And it was like a year-long ongoing job and paid my rent. And I
Wow.
never looked back. I remember getting to the microphone and feeling, I know this is cheesy, but I felt like I was home. All of the self-consciousness, all of the awareness of how am I being visually seen versus what do I know I can do internally, all of that melted. And I get to do anything.
Awesome. Can you remember what your first ever animated show that you worked on was? I think it might have been, was it Johnny Bravo? Or something earlier, Powerpuff
So
Girls?
it's hard. It's hard for me to remember whether I had already started on the Zeta Project when Johnny Bravo and Powerpuff Girls came up as like guest appearances. I don't know which recorded first. However, I believe my first animated project was The Trumpet of the Swan. I think that
Oh
was my
yeah.
first animated project. Um,
Ooh.
but yes, all of those. I mean, the Zeta Project and Powerpuff Girls and Johnny Bravo were all, you know, recording at the same time. I remember when Tara Strong came in to do an episode of the Zeta Project, and I remember going into the room and coming in to do Robin Schneider. I had no idea anyone was going to remember her all these years later, and just sort of like, oh, wow, look at these masters at work. This is amazing. This is incredible.
Yeah, definitely. And I know that Zeta Project had a crossover episode with Batman Beyond. What was it like to record for that?
It was fantastic. I mean, that whole experience, it was certainly the Zeta Project was like my first, regular animated experience. And it was also so early in my voiceover career. Doing the crossovers and, meeting all of these incredible performers was wild. And also, it just always felt like play to me. And
Yeah.
anytime I can access the feeling of play, I feel like anxiety, because, that can come up for all of us at any time, kind of melts
Yeah.
away. And then
Mm-hmm.
I'm just present. And the more present I am with joy or play, the I feel like the better the performance is, or the better the work is, or the greater the concentration and focus can be for me, right? And interest can breed aptitude. So the more interested I am, the more curious I am, and the more I'll learn. So all of those things were happening concurrently during that time. And I'm in the room, and there's, Will Friedle, and I'm sort of watching the way he's working. And of course, on Zeta Project, I'm like chilling with Dietrich Bader, who's just like the most wonderful human and such an incredible person to move through my first real series with. And just really learning from everybody there, and certainly from Andrea Romano, because, she's Andrea.
Yeah. No beating her. What was it like to work, of course, on the crossover episode with Kevin Conroy? I've got to ask if
It's
you can
funny.
remember.
My memory of all of those sessions in general was that they were just joyful. I don't
Mhm.
have my memory is that I worked, so much with for the Batman Beyond with Will Friedle. And that was sort of the primary scene work, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
But every single person I met, I was wowed by, you know.
Yeah, well, that's wonderful. Honestly, I'm so happy for you. This is a bit of an unrelated question,
Okay,
but if
yes,
I believe you're a mum, right? You have a child. I'm not sure if
I
you have
do.
a.
I have a son.
You have
Yeah.
a son. This is an interesting question. I'm not sure how old your son is, and it's obviously not in my place to ask. But what's it been like for your son to grow up listening to your work? If he has listened to maybe whatever shows you're watching, whether it's targeted at a younger demographic or an older demographic, how has it been? When did he sort of get the gist that, oh yeah, my mum's a voice actor, she does this?
That's such a great question. I don't think anyone's ever asked me that way before. And So it's I'm like really on the spot deciding which story to share because he, from a very young age, I mean, he was in my belly as I was recording stuff. I was in Metal Gear Solid Peace Walker recording soldiers, and no
Mhm.
one knew I was pregnant. And the three women who were sharing the booth with me, two of them were moms and noticed I had motion sickness bands on. And they were like, "Are you pregnant?" I was like, "Yes, how do you know?" So, my kid was in my tummy for, screams and for silly voices. And I think he's probably desensitized at this point. Um, but but what's interesting is that everyone was sort of waiting for him, like, "Oh, is it really cool?" And he's like, "This is just what she does." Until he, I don't know why, somehow I ended up with, maybe it was when the Zeta Project came out with like the anniversary edition. Amber, I'm telling you, the first thing that he ever was like, "Oh, this is amazing," was Zeta Project. And
Wow.
yeah, and that, wasn't that long ago. And, he would have friends who'd be like, "Hey, your mom's in this thing." And he's like, "Okay." Not that he doesn't, feel, I don't know, happy. I mean, we have a wonderful relationship, but it wasn't phasing him. Now that he's getting older, there's I will share, I will probably never have him see this because I don't want to embarrass him, but he definitely told me that when Helldivers came out,
Mhm.
because I play one of the four player voices, that was something that he was like, a lot of people are talking about this. He's like, "That's really cool." And I was like, "Cool, neat." Um, but yeah, and I will tell you that when he was really young, he would get he didn't like if I did accents, like stuff that made me not seem like mom.
Yeah.
That was, uncomfortable. So
Hmm.
yeah.
That's interesting. Wow, that is a really good perspective to put it from. And the accent thing, honestly, wow, yeah, because like some people just see, it's like weird to see two sides to one person. Like you know them as such and
Right.
such the voice actress, but then you just know them as mom
Right.
or
Yeah.
dad.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
crazy.
He
It's
really
crazy. Like
he
two
really
different
wants me
sides.
to just be that person, which makes a lot of sense, right? He just wants to know
Yeah,
that that's what, I want to be for my kid anyway. Is like,
yeah,
solid.
yeah.
I want to be a grounding force, even though I am in the enchanted forest and tend to float around.
Well, I think it's very cool. Honestly,
Thanks.
I think you're doing a really good job.
Oh, thank you.
You're
Sweet.
welcome.
Mm.
Oh, well. um, so I've got to ask you, of course, moving over to the Disney Princess franchise. You are currently voicing Princess Belle from Beauty and the Beast in multiple different pieces of media. Of course, Paige O'Hara was the original voice. What is the story of you sort of taking over? Well, not really taking over, but sort of inheriting the role for different video games and different projects.
You know, I I tend to just sort of glaze over it anyway because in my mind, and I mean in terms of like even talking about it, you know, Paige is Belle. Like that's my job is to just sort of keep honoring what she's done and, whenever they need me, to to allow that voice to continue.
Yeah.
That's what I love to do. But I try, it's so funny. I try to be very, I don't know. It's not for me to take over. When you say like, and you took over,
Yeah.
that's not how
Yeah.
I
So I was like, inherit.
see
Should I say
it.
inherit? What's the
Yeah. Or
best way? Or put your own spin on it. Not take over, but just be one of Belle's voices.
I have been a fan of Belle, Beauty and the Beast forever. And,
Mhm.
I'm an avid reader and I have books surrounding me right now. If you can't see them, but I promise you they're there. So I've always, you know, loved her. And, I've always been enamored of the work that Disney does. Um, and now they're doing so many different kinds of stories and telling them in so many varied ways that it really is it's a beautiful thing to me that anybody of any age can go to Disneyland, but also anybody of any age can enjoy an animated series. Anybody of any age can say, okay, well, let me see what's on Disney Plus, what's on Disney, and I'm going to find a Star Wars show, or I'm going to find, and it's just always sort of it's playful, right? It's always highlighting the play.
Yeah.
You and I were talking a little bit about Comic-Con before we started, and one of the
Yeah,
things I
yeah.
love about Comic-Con is it reminds me of that same itch you get to scratch at Disneyland, because at any age you get to go and just play at, a convention. People are dressing up like their favorite characters, and there's sort of this unabashedly joyful, you know, um, immersion
Yeah.
in the worlds that have inspired each person. So
Yeah.
it's beyond Halloween, right?
Yeah. I completely agree with you on that, because next month I'm now 20. I'm turning 21 early next year.
Oh my
And next month I am going to Disneyland for the first time ever in my life. So
God. Really?
I'm
You've never
healing
been?
never. I mean, I've never been to the one in Paris. I've never really, I literally only got a passport like 2 years ago. So I am now reviving the 5-year-old in me, being surprised with do you go to Disneyland trip? And then just being like, oh, I'm gonna be Mickey Mouse, and just, eating all these, like the pretzels that they do in the shape of Mickey's head. Is that what they do? I don't know, but like, I am very
There,
intrigued to see what goes
there,
on there.
there are lots of character themed moments, snacks, experiences.
Yep.
Are you going with anyone who's going to sort of show you the
Yeah,
regular
yeah,
Disney ropes?
I'm going with a group of friends,
Oh,
yeah.
good. Okay,
So
good.
hopefully they will know
Yeah.
the way better than I do.
Well, you'll explore it. There's a lot, and yeah, I mean, like I I like so much about Disneyland, and I will also always take time to go on Winnie the Pooh ride, which is completely for 4-year-olds, and I
Is
don't
it?
care. Like,
Awesome.
there's something, I had this experience when my kid was really young going through
Mhm.
it.
Yeah,
And because I was watching through his eyes, I wasn't looking at how how the sets were being made, or even the fact that they were sets.
yeah,
Everything blurred, and I could sort of make my eyes make everything veiled and a little fuzzy, and it all came to life. And
yeah,
then several years later, I found myself distracted, and I sort of saw, well, this is a set. And I realized it's a choice.
yeah,
So it was on that ride that I really had this epiphany that I can focus on how something works and look
yeah,
at it from almost an engineering or logistical perspective, or I can soften my view, soften my perception,
yeah.
and allow the magic. And that was so powerful to me that I
Mm.
like to revisit the Winnie the Pooh ride for that experience. When I say it out loud, it's fine. It sounds like me. Go on.
Well, can I ask, have you done any voiceover work for any Disney parks? Like any rides or anything like that?
I I think I think so, but I have to get back to you. I know that sounds odd.
That's fine, don't worry.
I think I have like some background stuff on a ride. I think so, but I that sounds so weird that I don't remember right now, but I also don't want to misspeak. So we'll leave it as I'll get back to you.
That's okay. So behind the voice actors, I go. That's my
It
trusty
may not
website
be.
when I'm looking at.
That's what I'm
Uh,
thinking. Like, I don't think, because it's not
I
something that
don't think
necessarily
it doesn't
gets
say anything.
credited in that
No.
way. I'm not sure. I
No.
have a memory of doing stuff, but I've done stuff for um, some of the other parks. Like, I don't know if it was like Tokyo or Paris or something. So there've been little things, but it's hard for me to even remember. I know that sounds very odd because
Yeah. No,
it's
it's okay.
kind of
Honestly,
thing
don't
a
worry.
person loves to do. But
Honestly, don't worry. It's fine. It's fine. Honestly, if I hear your voice, I will most likely recognize it. So
okay,
don't
great.
worry.
That's great. Thank you.
Awesome, awesome. You're welcome. My notes have somehow disappeared. There we go. So I've obviously got to ask real quick. I asked this to everyone I meet. Don't worry. What is your favorite color?
My favorite color. Well, most consistently it has been like a lilac purple.
Ooh,
But I'm in a very green and teal seafoam phase right now. But I've always pretty traditionally liked sort of a lilac purple.
awesome. Mine is yellow.
Yellow.
Love yellow.
Yes.
Always loved it.
And
It's just
spots
always cute.
like it's light, right? It's
Yeah,
like
yeah.
sunlight.
It's like the
It's a
sun. It's like
burst.
happy, It's just like just like I mean, since I was a kid, I've loved the color yellow. Everything I wanted it to be yellow. Having to pick between pink and blue. I'm like, yeah, screw it. I want yellow.
Here, you have only two colors. Please identify yourself is just a completely messed up way of
I'm a rainbow.
it's
I
yeah,
love
but
all colors.
I love all colors and I'd be happy to
They're
say that,
great.
but I know that won't be the most satisfying response. So yes,
Honestly,
greens
I've had people
and
say they love all
purples.
colors, so I'm like,
I
that's
yeah,
fine.
I mean
That's
I
fine.
like and it's
Even them
always
out
what's
the bedroom.
iridescent. Like if you look at it, they have like a lilac and a green, a seafoam green, little blue. It's all about what's
Yeah,
iridescent.
yeah, yeah. Is there any recent projects that you'd like to talk about at the moment that you can speak about? If you're not under NDAs, if said project has been announced already or not?
Well, let's see. An anime Rising Impact just launched,
Mm-hmm.
which is on Netflix. I get to play Yumiko, and she's a really spunky, very skilled golfer, and has a really a funny and sometimes big sisterly and sometimes not relationship with Gawain, who's
Mm-hmm.
the main role played by Debbie Derryberry. And
Oh,
it's a cool one, and I really like my character. I also get to play Kajiri in that anime as
oh,
well.
awesome.
I also just showed up on TP Ban, and I play in I think in two episodes I have a couple of featured roles, but in one something I want to say like the beautiful girl on the battlefield, and if I just remembered that I would be very surprised. But in that I play Akiko, and without spoiling, I will say that much of my character is in she's played in her 90s, and then we
Yeah.
also see her as a younger person, and it that was also like very much there was a lot of depth and heart to it, and it was also just a kind of a cool thing to get to play a couple of ages in the same project. um, and there are always things I've been um, let's see. I've been announced or I'm allowed to share that I'm in Star Wars Outlaws, but I can't say any more than that. But yeah, there's always fun stuff, and sometimes I don't know when it's come out. I'm sure you've had other voiceover pals of mine tell you this, but
Yeah,
I
yeah. Even
definitely
voice
had the
directors and
experience
stuff.
of seeing something on IMDb,
Mm-hmm.
seeing that I'm listed, seeing character names. So it must like it's not an additional voices that I don't. What is this? I literally texted someone else from the cast and I was like, what is this project? And they were like, oh, it's this, like, peanut butter sandwich or whatever it was as the code name, which it was not. And I was like, oh, that, because we often just don't know, which is so
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, a lot of code names are very common in the voiceover industry. I mean, when I was speaking to people who worked on X-Men '97, like they were given a project name, but as soon as they read the characters, they were like, "This is X-Men. This is X-Men." I'm
hard.
like, "Yep, yep." You could
Right.
tell definitely.
I'm
Is
sure you do
there a
that too. Try to assess what something is when you see the
Yeah,
copy.
yeah, yeah. I usually do, but sometimes they disguise it so well I can't even figure out what brand or place it's for. But I mean, I don't end up getting the role, so it doesn't really matter after that. But anyways, is there a memorable memory from any recording session that you've done? Maybe you've met someone famous who has left you starstruck. Maybe a kind gesture has been made towards you. Is there any lovely moments that stick out from any of the sessions that you've ever done?
Oh my gosh. Um, probably so many that I'm shifting into neutral right now, trying to think of what's the best one to
That's
share.
okay.
I let's see. See, memorable moments can come in so many different shapes. I remember starting to picking up doing voiceover, March, I don't know, 19th of the pandemic. I mean, like really a few days after lockdown started working.
Yeah.
And I remember feeling so um, almost out of body that
Yeah.
I was able to do this and continue to work, but knowing that everything is so tenuous in the world, and there was a lot of, it's just had an intensity to it. And then as we moved through that period of time, getting to do more and more projects, and they changed in sort of vibe. I did a Netflix anime called Eden, and my
Hmm.
character had there was a loss that she experienced, and I it was memorable to me by myself in my house, breaking down and sobbing as the character because there was so much, happening in the world, and all the feelings were very raw at the time. In terms of other humans, which is a much more fun topic, um, being in some of the Avengers Assemble um, rooms where, every member of the cast would be there. I remember the first time Kari Walgren and I were finally in a session together was for Avengers, and we've been very, very, very close friends for years, but, we don't always get to hang together in a room. Um, and Mark Hamill was there for, I think, maybe the same session or a different one. And just getting to work with so many wonderful people. I also remember that for the Spider-Man series that you mentioned, which was a very long time ago, um, that Neil Patrick Harris was our Spider-Man and Lisa Loeb was our Mary Jane. But we also had Ian Ziering in our cast. And I
Ah,
hadn't seen
yes.
Ian since my on camera days, because I was recurring on season 7 of Beverly Hills 90210. So I hadn't seen him in all those years. And that was really fun. But there were some incredible guest stars on the Zeta Project. Poor Lorraine Newman, I've told her too many times, but when she came in to guest star on the Zeta Project, I just about fell over because I've always worshipped her comedy. But yeah,
I
there's
mean,
also the other story, which is not from one of my sessions, but I did get to meet James Earl Jones, and I was at a studio a million years ago in New York. And the studio knew that I had
mhm.
always wanted to meet him, and so they brought him in, and I got to meet him, and I embarrassed myself.
Wow. Oh, that's awesome. Wow. Going back to the Zeta Project, I mean, I did look into it a little bit, and
Okay.
apparently it wasn't originally. It was either that or static, but originally wasn't supposed to be a part of the DC animated universe timeline. Because if you look at it, some of the animation, you know how it's usually like sort of like 2D, but then you've got like the 3D scenes with like the vehicles and stuff. Like, do you know anything about what made them decide to sort of connect it with like Batman Beyond and stuff like that? Or well, no, wasn't one of them wasn't no Zeta was in an episode of Batman Beyond.
Right. So
There we go.
Zeta was a character who had been on Batman Beyond, and then Bob Goodman spun him off into a whole series. And that's why we, came back and did our crossover with Batman Beyond. Um,
Awesome. That
yeah,
is so cool.
that was really
Yeah,
cool.
honestly, like I am still gobsmacked and just like you've worked on so much and with so many people. One of these projects, of course, that I am well, you worked on a Scooby-Doo project, Be Cool Scooby-Doo. What do you remember about that? Now I'm gonna guess because obviously it was Scooby-Doo. You did it at Salami Studios with Colette Sunderman and it was a whole cast recording. Am I right?
It was at Salami Studios, and it was indeed with Colette. I believe there were a couple of other people, but it wasn't a giant recording. It
Yeah,
wasn't like a
usually
full
it's just
group.
4 or 5 people who do Scooby-Doo. It's usually the
Yeah.
4 main guys and then 1 or 2 guest stars on that episode.
Yeah, no, I'm not even sure. I think we were sort of doing side scenes, if I remember correctly.
Ah, right.
But it's like there is a possibility I'm mixing it up with something else because I'm also remembering that right before the pandemic, right before like the last session I had
Yeah.
before we shut down, Matt Mercer and I were at Salami Studios doing a show called Stillwater. And it was just the two of us in the studio and being like, do we hug people? Like, what's happening? We understand this thing is happening.
Oh, sorry. That's
Okay.
just completely. I've got to look this up. I've got. Is that if that? Of course. Yesterday I spoke to Meredith Lane. He was the voice director on Stillwater.
You talked to Meredith
I
yesterday?
did, yes. She was really lovely. We spoke about, a lot of projects things she's done. That's why I kind of went silent. I was like,
Yeah.
Stillwater. I spoke about Stillwater yesterday. Was it? It was Meredith on that show, and I didn't know if you were
I
like a recurring cast member on that. So I was like,
No, and
yeah.
Meredith Lane is she is a beautiful human being. She is there's there's no like I don't know pretense or anything. She's just wonderful and grounded and creative and loves the stories she tells.
I think she might be at Comic Con next month. I think
She and I have
outside to meet her.
chatted about it a bit. Yeah. She's directed me in some lovely things. She directed me in Blood of Zeus, where I voice Aphrodite, um, and Dota 2. Um, so Dragon's Blood. So I mean, I've worked with her for a long time. She's a beautiful human being. I love her. Oh,
Oh,
she directed me in Freak Angels, which um, I was sort of bummed that that didn't, sort of continue. It was a really,
yeah.
really cool project. I think it's still available on Crunchyroll, but I got to play Arcady, and she was an awesome
Awesome.
role. Yeah, awesome role.
Wow. Well, Julie, I've got to ask you the big question now. The final question, the
Okay,
biggest one.
okay.
What would you say? I've completely lost it. Oh, never mind. Is there a franchise that you would love to work on that you've not worked on yet? Be any franchise in the world.
I mean, it's hard not to say Wonder Woman. Just to be a part of that universe, I think.
I mean,
Um,
Vanessa Marshall's voiced her.
yeah, she has
Yeah, and she was
indeed,
one of
and
it. I was like, you gotta have to
yeah,
know it.
she has, and I believe, I think both Kari and Courtney, so Kari Walgren and Courtney Taylor, I think they both have as well. But it's just more to be in that universe. When the first movie came out, my friend Jen Miro and I were talking. She's a wonderful writer, and we were talking about wanting to go to the movie and sort of decided to just get together everyone we knew. And so met at a movie theater with about 100 people.
Wow.
I would say the majority were women, but we also had some non-women as well. And it was all like for everybody. And it was really stunning. And there's a photograph. I think Pierce O'Toole took it, but he took like a wide angle photo of everybody, and it ended up in Deadline because we had gathered all the people and it was part of, wanting to show up for this movie.
You've just reminded me when you said over 100 women and non-women and also
Yeah.
photograph. You were at June Foray's memorial, weren't you? Because there was a
Yeah.
massive photo of all these voice actors on stage with a portrait of June, and I'm pretty sure you were there. I think
Yeah.
Carrie Walgren was there. I can't remember.
It was a pretty incredible night, and that I actually did get to tell that story of getting to meet June, and a little exchange that we had
Yeah, yeah,
that
yeah, yeah,
day.
yeah.
And yeah, there were some incredible people there that night. And Lily Tomlin was there. It was, I don't, to say like it was an honor to be there and to be asked to be on stage is such
Yeah.
an incredible understatement. I don't even know how to phrase it. somewhere between imposter syndrome and delight, I think. It was
Yeah.
just really, she, a lot of people have paved the way for a lot of wonderful things. I think
Yeah.
one of the things that she gave to all of us,
Mm-hmm.
especially those of us who might have been otherwise marginalized, in voice,
Yeah.
women aren't
Mm-hmm.
supposed to be funny, women aren't supposed to be goofy, right?
Yeah.
So
Mm-hmm.
more of that, like, just kind of go into that box, more pigeonholed. She really just, blew past all of those old ways and assumptions. And, there was a permission that I felt listening to her work, watching her work, and going
Yeah.
like, oh, I don't have to be held back by any of that, which is really what
Yeah.
voiceover had been for me from the beginning. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, I don't have to imagine whether someone looks at me and thinks I can do that. That's kind of what I meant about the on-camera piece. I'm not
Yeah.
sure whether my own assessment of longevity as an on-camera actor would have been accurate, but the feeling I had was no one's going to believe me
Mm.
playing, a giant ferocious creature, right?
Yeah.
If they look at
Mm-hmm.
me, they're not going to be like, that's who I think should play that role. But in
Yeah.
voiceover, I can close my eyes and be anything I want.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Yeah. And going back to that June memorial photo, I'm literally just looking at it right now and I'm just thinking, yeah, I recognize like nearly no, I mean everyone. Yes, I do recognize everyone in this photo. So you got I'm gonna display it on screen here underneath.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you've got from left to right, you've got Debbie Derryberry, Marion Massaro, forgive me if I didn't pronounce that correctly, Nancy Cartwright, Gray Delisle Griffin, Deborah Wilson, E.G. Daly, Vanessa Marshall, Lily Tomlin, a photo of June Foray, Lorraine Newman, Teresa Ganzel, Audrey Wasilewski, Candy Milo, you, Corey Walgren, Misty Lee, Laura Summer, Lucy Taylor, and Katie Lee. Now, a lot of these women I've either had on my podcast, I've had on my podcast, and or I've met in person. So, out of all those, sorry to brag, I have met in person. I've met Gray, I've met Deborah, I've met Katie. There we go. And on my show, I've had Debbie, I've had Deborah, I've had Vanessa,
You've had
I've had
Kari.
you. Yep, Akari, you, Misty Lee, Laura, Summer, and Katie Lee. And some of these guys, I know them. I've interviewed them. Yeah. Anyways, just saying, I know them, and I love them
I
very so
love
much.
that's kind of amazing that you have, interviewed and met all of these people because, I know it can be difficult. You and I have, I know you
Yeah,
said you've
yeah,
been wanting to have me on, and thank you for your incredible patience and persistence. It is a lot, to be able to say like, hey, I really want to interview you and each person, but I guess I want you to know that some of the people you've interviewed who are friends of mine had emailed me and said like, hey, I just had this wonderful conversation with Amber, I know she wants to interview you. And so you've had people, I think Vanessa Marshall did, I think Kari Walgren did. So
yeah.
I think there
It was
is
particularly those two.
what did you say?
I thought it might have been those two.
It was those two. Yeah, but I guess I just wanted to say, your excitement is so infectious, and it's really so delightful to see you get so excited about all of this stuff.
Yeah,
And it's a real reminder of how special what we get to do is, and I know you're a voice actor as well, so you know what I
yeah.
mean.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, honestly, just I'm so excited. I'm still looking at that photo, just like I think it's only really, yeah, the only people I've not met or interacted with Marion, Nancy, EJ, yeah, I do remember I have spoken to her before. Lorraine sort of interacted with it, like liked each other's posts online and stuff.
Hmm.
And Rusi, she
Yeah.
passed before I could really, before obviously she didn't have social media and before I met her. So everyone else, yeah, I probably have interacted with or spoken to. Oh, and Lily Tomlin as well. I've not thingied. Anyways, yes. Julie, thank you so much. Ignore my rambling, but thank you so much for being on my show. It really does mean a lot to this fangirl right here.
Oh, thank you. And thank you so much for inviting me in the first place. You throw a great party.
Oh,
And
thank you.
I am grateful for the opportunity to chat with you. Like I said, you have your excitement and passion and delight have delighted the people I know who have been interviewed by you. So thank you for giving me my own experience of your levity.
You're welcome. Where can we find you on the internet, on social
on,
media?
on the internet. I had been very active on Twitter. Twitter's been a little weird lately, but I'm still
Oh,
there.
yeah.
I just don't post as much as I used to. But it's the same handle as Instagram. I'm trying to get better at Instagram. So you can find me in both places. Julie_Nathanson for both.
Yeah.
I'm on Blue Sky, but I haven't really seen that take off. I'm kind of figuring my way. I was so heavily involved in the discourse on Twitter because I love being able to, verbally connect. I can't imagine where
Yeah.
that comes from.
Yeah.
But we'll see. We'll
Yeah,
see what goes
awesome.
next.
Well, I'll stick those links in the description below. And by the time this interview comes out, I can allowed to say this essentially. Julie will be appearing at San Diego Comic Con, and will also be appearing on one of Mark Evanier's Cartoon Voices panels if you want to go and see that, like me. Thank you so much for watching this episode of In Conversation with ATF. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did recording it. Stay safe, be happy. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and we'll see you around. Take care, everybody. Bye, and cut.